Invasion Day protests attended by thousands of people. There are concerns, understandably, from what Holly and Julia have been reporting today from within the Indigenous community, that the group and the groups around the Invasion Day protests could derail the push for a voice to Parliament, given a large part of those rallying are vocally backing the No campaign. Joining me now is Auntie Jill Gallagher. She's the Chief Executive of Victoria's Aboriginal Community Controlled Health Organisation. Thanks so much for your time. How much of a worry is that you would see a cohort of First Nations Australians voting no in a referendum later this year?
I'm really not all that concerned about Aboriginal people having different points of view. We're entitled to have our own different points of view, and we're no different to any other community group, except we are the first people of this country. So to have a different point of view with certain people, that's healthy, that's normal, and I welcome the conversations. But what I'm concerned about is that the hijacking of some of these rallies at a very late notice for people to have an informed, to make an informed decision is about, we still haven't managed to change the date, the 26th of January. We still need to be able to celebrate, we as Aboriginal people, we still need to be able to celebrate with the rest of Australia. But we can't do that on the 26th of January because that's our day of mourning. And it's been our day of mourning for many, many, many years, well before the 26th was Australia Day. So it's still important. It is still an important issue. We still need to change that date. So I can celebrate with my next door neighbours. And I was watching earlier the people, the Australians in Sydney, all out in their full get-ups, and it's fantastic to see that. But I'd like to be, and my people would like to be also joining in those celebrations also. But coming back to a voice to Parliament, I think people have got to understand, that those rallies were mainly around Survival Day, changed the date, and then all of a sudden they changed as a no vote to a voice to Parliament. That's the concerning part of this. And if I had one thing to say to all Australians, a voice to Parliament is about our standing as First Peoples of this country in this country. It is about, it's about that recognition, and it's about that empowerment. And you cannot, what we did in Victoria, because I was also the former Treaty Commissioner, and so what we did in Victoria when the state government said, we're going to put treaties on the table, and this was back in 2015, I think it was. Well, we as Aboriginal people in this state said, well, who do they talk to? So my role as a commissioner was to establish a voice. So Victoria, when you look at it, we've implemented the Uluru Statement in its entirety and in the sequence that it states in the statements.
Yeah, and well, I read the analysis by your counterpart, Marcus Stewart, who's the co-chair of the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria, which you're alluding to there. And he was saying that the same people that are saying vote no said that the Assembly was too weak when you were putting it forward. And yet you have made progress and you are on the path to a treaty in Victoria.
That's so true. When I first embarked in this space in Victoria, I didn't think in my lifetime would I see clan-based treaties being negotiated, because I thought it was going to be a humongous challenge. But when we went out and set up, we knew we had to set up something. We had to set up a mechanism for state government to negotiate with. So, but they don't negotiate treaties. So what they negotiated was a treaty negotiating framework. They designed a truth-telling process. They set up the treaty authority, and now the last piece to the puzzle was the self-determination fund. So I now believe we will see in Victoria treaties being negotiated in my lifetime. We're almost there. The only thing that we didn't do to safeguard this process, and this is where the voice and the Constitution comes into play. We have to actually make sure that, in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years' time, other governments come in, whatever, and there might be change of heart, that we don't lose all the hard work that we've established at a whim. So legislation, yes, we did the treaty legislation, but we need to enshrine it in the Constitution. We actually need what we've achieved here in Victoria, in Victoria's Constitution. So at the national level, if the government say, okay, well, we reckon we do treaties now, who are they going to talk to?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure whether yourself or your listeners remember ATSIC. ATSIC was our elected voice many years ago, and it was wasn't enshrined in the Constitution, but it was set up in legislation. And the Commonwealth Government abolished it. No engagement with Aboriginal communities, no, should you think we should do this? None of that, they just abolished it. So that protects
it is,
in the Constitution.
And it goes to the question of, as you've said, who would they negotiate with? So Lydia Thorpe, the Greens senator, she's saying then there's got to be a treaty, that she's saying no voice, a treaty. Now, I totally understand what you're saying about Indigenous Australians, First Nations peoples are allowed a view, of course, and entitled to their own point of view on this as they are everything else. But you also need to win, and the Yes campaign needs to win the vote to get this up. So if you had a message to Lydia Thorpe and others, what would that be?
That message would be, we need the constitutional protection. We need this voice enshrined in there. And then everything else underneath that will be worked out. If we miss this opportunity, we're going to continue with the status quo. We're going to continue with our voices being disempowered. And yes, we have Aboriginal senators, that's fantastic. And yes, we have Aboriginal politicians, that's even fantastic. But they are not an independent voice for the Aboriginal community. They have to follow the party line. So the voice to Parliament, I say to all Australians, when you go to the polling booths, it's just you and your conscience in that polling booth. Vote to empower Aboriginal voices right across this country.
Auntie Jill Gallagher, Chief Executive of Victoria's Aboriginal Community Controlled Health Organisation, I very much appreciate your time and your insights. Hopefully we get to chat again soon over the coming months as this debate continues. Appreciate it.
Thank you.